When I was a young man, as most of us do, we end up seeking to find something that fulfills us. I looked everywhere, not not as widespread as some where they got into drugs and drinking. There was a little bit of drinking, but not anything as far as drugs. But there was a lot of confusion. And yet, some sort of way deep down, I knew where the fulfillment was not. In other words, just as you eat a meal and you could tell whether you're full and whether it agreed with your body within a short period of time, you can tell that this type of completeness when it comes into your life and you feel whole or complete. And what I've noticed through my many years of doing this is that it always coincides with the acknowledgement and acceptance of the truth of whatever that happens to be in front of you. Not some universal truth as so many people would like for you to believe that they have all the answers, but the simple truth about what I was seeing right in front of me. I learned it at first in the very small things, just as something as simple as when I saw a math problem and how it actually functioned. And I sort of made some kind of weird connection with it and understood that, well, again, at that point, I truly understood, and it wasn't based on just the knowledge of what I had just learned. I had a deep comprehension of what it was I had just learned. And I learned that everything in my life, no matter how big or small, when that awareness came into my um, mental faculties, for lack of a better word, then and at that point in time, I was able to see the or experience the connection or the fullness with it, just like when we have that aha moment. That is pretty much the same thing. The aha moment when we really and truly get it deep down inside, and if we have the uh, guts to face it, which sometimes is not so difficult for a lot, then we can experience the fulfillment or the fullness that occurs when we connect with the truth. Far many times, far too many times, we end up in situations where we see the truth, and then because of that truth, we may have to face other things in our life and we don't want to deal with it. So we conveniently push it to the side for a period of time, and if it happens to show up again when we're ready later, then it might change us. Otherwise, we just sort of push it aside because we like our life the way it's supposed to be, or with the way we want it to be. Let's put it like that. And far too many times, people desire for their life to be a certain way, and they really strive for it because of their simple desires, their simple goals, whatever they happen to be, and they end up hindering them in the long run. When we finally learn that we can have the connection, if you will, to the truth and be a part of it, the truth's strength then becomes our own. And we no longer have to fight to basically prove to anyone who we are because the truth itself stands on its own. When we can't believe it because we know we don't have that connection, then we will not allow the truth to stand on its own. We will try to justify why we're doing basically almost anything and everything that we do in our life. And as long as that justification exists, what you will find out is that justification by default is an inward, almost condemning. I hate to use the word condemning, but one that says that you're not acceptable, that you have fallen short. Otherwise, what is the purpose of justifying yourself? The reason why anybody justifies is because they feel something deep down inside that they have to prove to someone else, even themselves, which is probably the most critical part. They have to prove that they're okay. Well, the only reason you have to prove that you're okay is because you question it in the first place. So, why do we question? Well, the answer to that, I believe, is very simple. We question, as far as our justification is concerned, is because deep down inside, we know when we recognize the truth and when we don't. I believe we all have heard somebody when they have said something, or when we have said it ourselves, something that we knew to be 100% true, and it resonated within us like a bell that had a resonant frequency for a particular frequency, and you hear it, and it's always the same tone no matter what's going on. I believe that we all have this internal bell or tuning fork, if you will, that resonates with the truth. And we all know this resonance, even if we haven't actually thought about it before. Otherwise, why would you judge yourself and feel like you had to justify what you're doing, even to yourself? It's easy to see, or you could use the idea of somebody judging you, and they're judging you, so you feel the need to justify because you feel a little bit guilty. But when you honestly don't think you're doing anything wrong, you don't even recognize that somebody's trying to judge you, no matter what that judgment is. I'm not talking about any religious idea. I'm talking about something as simple as two kids that are playing out in the yard, and one of them says, "You're not running right," and the other one says, "Why not?" Well, because this is how you're supposed to run. And he makes the first one believe that there's a right and a wrong way to run. And all of a sudden, the one that thought he was okay just a minute ago is now judging himself and saying, I failed. I feel like a failure. And so he feels the need to have to run like the first guy that told him in the first place. And that's just really screwed up. And it seems to be how we kind of live our life, where we actually judge ourselves based on other people and how they set standards for us. But no one actually knows when it comes right down to it except the person who's truly realized of the truth. And they don't really concern themselves with such silly things. It has everything to do with life, and they judge things based on whether or not the life within them is truly fulfilled. In other words, it edifies the true life within them. There are some people, a blind man wouldn't gain any input at all to him, any edification, trying to paint because he can't see. Yet a man who has a lot of puts a lot of weight on his sight to paint a beautiful picture is amazing to him because it creates something within him, and he identifies with what that picture was like, and it brings forth a fulfillment within him. So not everybody perceives their truth. I believe that this is where the idea of your truth and my truth comes from. It's because of perceptions. And that's the problem with most people and what they think about truth, because there's only one truth. There's your perception of your truth, there's my perception of my truth. But let's go back to for a minute to the blind man. If the blind man had a he could see and had the experiences that the sighted man had, he would probably come very close to the sighted man's idea of how things should be done in his life, or how he should experience or see these things. And the same thing goes for the sighted man. If he had the same experiences of the blind man, of course he would his world basically would be hearing. And so he would gain so much from hearing, maybe music, maybe just listening to the tones of someone's voice, whether he could determine whether the person was a true friend, or if there was something that was misguided in the words. The hope of the podcast, and to sum it up, is to cause a spark of interest in the hearers of it, that would allow them to realize they too can have a relationship with the truth and the substance of the truth, the true resonance of the truth, and independent of their knowledge, which can only be achieved through learning in your mind. The true knowledge or the true understanding is much, much, much deeper. It goes along the same lines as a relationship with the truth. In my life, I have proven this over and over again to be the truth. And I'm hoping that this same spark of interest will be developed in each and every one of you that listen, and you'll want to know what this is like also.